So last week, there was a lot of drama related to what kind of vote was going to be taken on expansion. And Cal and Stanford were the two schools, and then SMU out of nowhere.
What?
But Cal and Stanford, the remaining...
Hey, we already had Louisville, whatever. No offense, Louisville. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense. So Cal and Stanford were the points of obsession because they're what's left in the Pac-12. And it is telling that these two schools that the Big Ten didn't want and the Big 12 didn't want are suddenly ones that Jack Swarbrick, Notre Dame AD, who's on his way out, by the way, because he's going to be the guy heading up the college football playoff committee, or, in charge of the college football playoff.
Lovely.
That this was from various quotes, including one from Heather Dinich, that he thought it would be a shame because he was apparently pushing for it hard. Larry Williams over at Tiger Illustrated was the first to report that Notre Dame was the one that was really pushing for Cal and Stanford hard. They have an annual with Stanford, so that would make sense. But Swarbrick, I'm paraphrasing here from Heather Dinich's tweet, was that, it's just a shame that these two athletic departments would be left behind and we'd have to do something about this.
What
are we doing here, Lauren?
He's right. It really would be a shame. And I think in normal circumstances, it'd be amazing if the ACC had like a better TV deal, with like more money per school. And then they would be in a really great position to be able to add a couple teams and it really not impact their bottom line as much. And in fact, maybe even enhance the product. But, I'm sorry. Wait, they can't do that. They can't get a new TV deal. And they can't have any value added to their product that would get them a new and better TV deal. I could think of something that could happen to maybe improve that. Maybe... You know what? If I tell Jack Swarbrick, what do you think he'll say about Notre Dame coming in? Do you think that would help just as a full-time member? He's so concerned, with Stanford and Cal. I just wouldn't want him to have that on his conscience of those two fine, upstanding academic and athletic institutions being left out in the cold to starve. What would he do?
Yeah.
How would he live with himself? So maybe just let him know that if they just join the league, the ACC will be able to go back to the table and be like, hey, more money now. And then they could have them in no problem.
But their independence is very important to them, Lauren.
Well, that's too bad. Somebody should tell Jack that's just the way it has to be then for now because everyone's poor.
I am curious.
Just the absolute gall to say something like that.
That's college athletics.
But it's just like, I can't imagine knowing that literally my school is the reason that they don't have, that they can't. It's at least a huge reason, right?
Yeah.
That they can't renegotiate at the television table and being like, wait, why can't we take on 2 extra mouths to feed? This doesn't impact my football bottom line at all, but I'm just saying it'd be the right thing to do. Excuse me, sir, you do your own charity. How about that?
So I've been arguing with people over the last couple of weeks when the topic about expansion has come up, and the argument has been, the ACC's reacting. They should have been proactive. And my argument has always been, why? What are you ultimately adding?
You want to make that argument about an Oregon? I will listen to you at least a little bit because I think that's maybe one of the only other schools that could have added at least some value. Stanford and Cal ain't it, y'all. That's not adding any value. And all you are doing, you're not just adding, you have more schools. That means more money. That's not how this math works, people.
Now, it's bad. It's bad when Cal and Stanford reportedly would take huge pay cuts to join the conference. And that really the only reason the conversation...
that would be the only reason it would make sense.
The only reason why the conversation went as far as it did is that Cal and Stanford were willing to come in at a deep discount. The analogy that I've used, and this analogy would work with you too, is like you already have enough graphic tees, but
never do.
But they have a sale. Oh man, like I was at Target and they had like a buy 3 get 1 free. Might as well take advantage of it, right?
Yeah. No, I don't get me started on this.
So I'm the worst. But that's essentially what the ACC would be doing. It's actually what the Big Ten ended up doing with the remaining Pac-12 schools. It was, we already have enough teams. We already have the teams from the Pac-12 that we want, but you're saying I can get these at a deep discount? Well, why not? I might as well add a few more. You never know when you might need them. Like shout out to Will, former coworker. He basically has a polo in every color. It's the same polo in different colors because he likes the polo.
Yeah.
So he gets them on discount. So might as well. It ain't broke. Might as well do it. So that's why you're adding them. So the reason why the conversation went as far as it did was because Cal and Stanford were willing to defer basically come in to play for free.
But
and they're
not free.
like-minded institutions. That's something that we talked about with Holden Thorpe last week. I was talking with a friend at the pool yesterday. He was asking me all these questions, and I said, look, man, I'm not sitting here trying to like pimp the podcast to you. I'm not saying
it's just you can get your answers.
You can get all the answers you need out of our conversation with Holden Thorpe and how these things ultimately play out.
Right.
Why schools like Cal and Stanford and the presidents who all know each other would look out for them, like why Jack Swarbrick would say what he's saying.
But the other thing is that, and they are like-minded institutions.
Yes.
I get that part and blah, blah, blah. However, then you have to account for the whole going to California a bunch of times things for the other sports. You have to remember this does not just impact. And it's one thing if they bring you a lot of value. That's the thing. If it enhances your product, then you can say, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. Those schools do not enhance the ACC's product now. I'm sorry, they don't. Stanford, you could if you want to make a case for, okay, I can maybe see it, but that's about it. Like Cal isn't enhancing anybody. No offense, Cal. Sorry.
So there were 4 schools that voted against
Aaron
it.
Rodgers,
Again, this is another conversation that ties back into our interview with Holden Thorpe and how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Holden Thorpe told us about the time in which they wanted to add schools. They didn't have enough votes. And they didn't even take it to vote because Holden Thorpe said the minute that vote's taken, it'll leak. It'll end up on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Including like who voted where.
And who did what.
Yep.
And that's exactly what played out at the end of the week where there was a vote taken. So they didn't even want to take it to vote. It's like until we get unanimous, we're not taking a vote. So at the time, it was Florida State and Virginia. The way Holden Thorpe explained it back in 2012, 2013, it was that Florida State was being Florida State. Like Florida State hasn't really changed much in how they go about things in the last 10 years. They're the squeaky wheel. So Swafford goes down there. He, builds him up Buttercup. And then next thing you know, they got the vote. Virginia was a little bit more complicated because it was a difference of opinion in politics on the Board of Trustees and their school president, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Board of Visitors, I believe is how Virginia describes their BOT. Remember, it's not a campus, Brownlow. It's the grounds.
Visitors.
I think it's the Board of Visitors.
Sounds like a tourism board.
Text Caroline. I bet she knows what they call it up there. Up in Charlottesville.
I'm not touching this one. I'm not touching.
Different. Things are just different up in Charlottesville.
Yes, they are.
So they didn't even get to a vote because unless it was unanimous, they didn't want it leaking out because then you have drama. Well, you're seeing it spill out this way. So reportedly, it was Florida State and Clemson, North Carolina, and NC State.
Oh, look at them.
Look at State.
Besties.
Look.
Oh, guys.
We keep having this conversation, and there is an understanding between the two. And I think a lot of it has to do with the NCGA. But I would also maintain that Bubba Cunningham is the adult in the room in these cases. So when Bubba's voting against it, my guess is Boo's like, yeah, man, I'm with you too. That's
I was going to say,
numbers
Boo
here.
Corrigan's a level-headed guy as well.
Yes, very, very, very level-headed guy.
They're a lot of
those two make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Florida State and Clemson makes sense to me. Florida State doesn't because here's what you want to go. Let's go Game of Thrones, right?
Okay.
Who was the character that said chaos is a ladder?
I don't know, Littlefinger maybe?
Was it Littlefinger?
I don't know.
Okay,
Sounds like something he would say.
I think it was Littlefinger who said chaos is a ladder. Florida State has been the agent of chaos this entire time. So why wouldn't they want to add Cal and Stanford to then trigger or at least make sure that somebody else votes for them? They dissent because remember, you need 12 of 15 to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
They had 4 against instead of 3. So that's why it didn't happen. If I'm Florida State, I'm lobbying somebody like NC State or whoever to be like, no. We're against it, but I can see why this would work out for you. So if you want to do it, go ahead and vote for it. In behind the scenes, Florida State wanting it to happen so that they can argue what you just said. This does nothing for our league. It actually devalues our contract.
And so they can, right.
I take that to court and say, hey, look, we voted against this. We did not want this. We feel that the travel and the stature of the schools that they're adding do not benefit us in any way. And I feel like that breaks the grant of rights, and we're going to negotiate our way out. That is me going full chaos mode, which I guess Florida State wasn't thinking that way.
Honestly, you
got to think crazy. That's the thing. Like people are like, oh, well, granted rights. And I'm like, you all have forgotten that Florida State's just the crazy girlfriend right now, the crazy boyfriend. They're the crazy significant other. And you're just like, well, they're outsmarting you with crazy. All right. So you have to think that way.
Are they outsmarting anyone?
Maybe not. Maybe they're just pounding.
We
the
don't
table.
know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't know.
Well, it remains to be seen. Perhaps.
Maybe.
However, like we've just heard them say, "Oh, we got this." Like, have we heard how?
So I want to get back to. I do want to get back before we move on to mixtape and everything else. I do want to get back to staying put, not doing anything, and it's actually something that our friend Dimitri pointed out in his latest college football bubble bath. He did it in about 90 seconds versus me doing this over the course of multiple shows. And he put it succinctly, with every expansion, there's going to be a contraction. And we see this in every level of business and entertainment.
Yeah.
Things overheat, they break up, repeat the process.
Yep.
And the Big Ten is way too bloated right now. And all the teams in the Big 18 are not going to contribute the way that Ohio State, Michigan, et cetera want. The SEC is probably in a good spot right now at 16, but there's going to come a time at the next television negotiation where they're wondering, well, why are we paying Vanderbilt this amount of money? And they're all getting equal share. And the Big Ten is like, why is Rutgers getting this money?
If geography stops mattering, which I think we could all argue it already has,
yes,
then you're going to start looking into kind of letting go of your less valuable members.
Now, you can't kick a school out because you're just asking for a lawsuit.
Right.
However, you can renegotiate the next television deal that, hey, this school, you're not going to be getting a full share. You're going to be getting a reduced share because this is the value that you bring.
This is what makes me crazy, though, because it's like, why don't, at the end of the day, and I know it's going to take a lot more doing than just me saying this, but at the end of the day, the solution for all of this is probably just let everyone negotiate their own TV rights.
Well, I think what's going to happen is that the elite level schools are going to get to a point where they're going to leave and create their own super league, and conferences go back to a regional nature for basketball and everything else.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I mean. Honestly, if football did its own thing, cool. But again, these types of changes, adding like a Stanford and Cal, they impact every other sport. Like, it's ridiculous.
So I believe that's where we're headed. The Super League, these elite schools putting together a 24-team conference of football schools that do their own thing, and everybody else kind of reallocates to more regional play.
Hey, both Carolina and State used to be a part of an SEC. Then it was like 27 teams or something. It included teams like Sewanee and stuff like that. I mean, it's
like, why do you think the ACC exists?
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
So I think that's where things are headed. And this gets us back to Notre Dame. We'll end the conversation how we started the conversation with our friends in South Bend. Does Notre Dame want to wait this out?
Yeah.
In terms of television contracts?
I would.
Or do they just join the ACC and go forward? Now, we don't know what the college football playoff is going to look like because Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, has openly talked about, well, we did this under the premise that there's a Power 5. Do we even have a Power 5 anymore with the Pac-12's demise? Should we do the top 6 conference teams?
Right.
And then at larges, or do we go all at large? Of course, if you're the SEC, you want all at larges. Yep. If you're the Big Ten, you want all at larges. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So does Notre Dame are they included in that?
Yes.
I don't know. But the television deal for Notre Dame is going to change significantly as well, because the Pac-12, we'll put a bow on it like this. The reason why the Pac-12 imploded is because the presidents got hubris in terms of what they thought they were worth.
Yeah.
They went to ESPN, according to John Canzano, who's been writing about the Pac-12 for a very long time.
Yes.
He is essentially the David Teal of the Pac-12.
Yes, 100%.
All right. Canzano wrote a story over the weekend where the Pac-12 presidents wanted like $50 million from ESPN, like get them up with everybody else. ESPN said, no, you're worth 30. And they're like, what are you talking about? They said no. And then ESPN said,
how are they so naive?
Don't know. So they go to Apple.
I could have told them it would work out that way. Now pay me like $250,000 for a consulting fee.
They go to Apple. They find out they're going to get maybe 2025. That's incentive laden.
Yeah.
And now we're here. And now we're here. And it's because presidents think they're worth more than they actually are worth. And that's what Notre Dame might be finding out with NBC soon, where their next television contract might not be over the air. They might be on Peacock. And they don't know if Notre Dame wants to be on a streaming network.